Good afternoon, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. I just wanted to make a short video today to talk about the Mars-Saturn opposition that's happening this week and explain a few concepts with you. I wanted to look at the concept of connection and maltreatment and talk a little bit about those terms and show you how it works within the chart. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to annotate a little text bubble down here so we can see what we're looking at. And this is the concept of Sunafe, okay, with the little accent on the top there. And that word means connection. And what we are experiencing right now as we speak is a connection between Mars in Cancer and Saturn in Capricorn. And what that entails is when those planets come within 3 degrees of one another, or their aspect rays come within 3 degrees. So what we're seeing is that Mars at 17 degrees Cancer is within the opposition ray of Saturn at 19 degrees Capricorn. And this is important in Hellenistic and traditional astrology because it basically talks about those planets being engaged in the viewing of one another, in the conversation that they're going to be having. And this conversation isn't necessarily very pleasant. When we have two malefics conversing with one another, it can be a little bit of a frustrating, wild ride. And the specific condition that we're seeing in the sky right now is something called maltreatment. And basically, Mars is being maltreated by running headlong into the wall of Saturn. So it's kind of like our martial energy, our desire to put things out there, our desire to use our will, our desire to move forward is running headlong into the wall or the dam. And there is a no that's happening. So Saturn, of course, is kind of that boundary type of energy, the constructive no, sometimes the deconstructive no. It doesn't have to necessarily be a fun no. It can be a challenging no. And the nature of the opposition was said to be of the nature of Saturn. So there's this kind of consolidating exclusion type of energy where they're not going to necessarily be able to reconcile their differences. And Mars is in a ill-dignified position. It's said to be in its fall or its depression, where it was an outsider. It was at the bottom of the totem pole. It was in a temple where it was not able to act in a way that is in accordance with its preferred nature directly. And when Mars is in Cancer, there tends to be an indirectness. There's pregnant silences that happen. There is a backdoor channel type of energy that happens. Perhaps a tendency towards gossip rather than confronting things head on, or an inability to really face what we are coming up against in what might be a healthy way. There may be a little bit of an emotionality to the energy that we're putting out there that may not serve us in our best interest. And there is this aspect is going to be perfecting, okay, which means it's coming into an exactness. When an aspect perfects, it is exactly in the same degree as the other planet. So it'll perfect on Friday at 19 degrees here, okay? And that may be where the energy comes to a head. I wanted to make this video today because we're already in the middle of this energy, because they are in connection with one another. They are adhering. And Mars is being maltreated by Saturn. So the question becomes, what do we do about this? Well, I'm going to stop the share of my little chart here, and I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to share something that has been very helpful for me as I have gone about my life. It was a little book that I picked up many years ago called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And every time that I find myself in a position like this Mars-Saturn opposition, this always starts ringing bells in my head. And I spoke about this briefly in my week ahead video, but I wanted to be a little bit more articulate about that. And it's just generally good advice, practical advice for dealing with conflict and with living your life in general. This is Don Miguel Ruiz was a Toltec shaman, and this stuff has really resonated with me for a long time. So let's go through this. First of all, you might be feeling a drive towards, I don't know, I compared it to a little bit of a temper tantrum that people may be wanting to throw over the course of this week when you don't get what you want. And this really speaks to Four Agreements. Number one, be impeccable with your word. Don Miguel Ruiz says, speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Super important to remember that this week, because our tendency may be to go behind people's back, to complain about the circumstance. Human beings love to complain. And in this, I don't know, digital world that we have now, it's easier than ever to have an audience for our emotional upsets. And I would caution you against that this week. I would caution you to be strong in your silence if there is something that you are upset about, and maybe reflect on it first before creating more of an issue than may be necessary. So try to focus on the things that are going well, and try to focus on what is good in your life. I've had a number of clients and family members come to me this week with challenges, and that's been my advice, is try to speak with integrity from the higher part of yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't work these things out with people. It doesn't mean that you can't express frustrations that you have. It just means that you will be more powerful if you are looking to build others up rather than to tear them down. Number two, don't take anything personally. Oh, this one's huge. This is one of the hardest ones to do. And I'll be 100% honest with you. Learning how to use these concepts is lifelong. This is not anything that anybody is perfect at doing. Just by the very nature of being human, we're going to fall short of the glory every once in a while. And this one in particular, Don Miguel Ruiz says, nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions of others and the actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. This is a big one for this aspect right now. Mars in Cancer is very personal. We will tend to identify with our own emotional sphere. Cancer has this like bubble around it where it's kind of experiencing its own, feedback loop. In the earlier video, I talked about the second decan of Cancer being associated by the wonderful Austin Coppock with the walled garden and the hothouse flower. So a lot of the energy that we may be experiencing is within this very specific, personal, subjective environment. Imagine that you've got a sword and there's all these very delicate flowers and you're just kind of whirlwinding around and chopping the heads off the flowers and whatnot. And that's the type of thing that we're experiencing this week. So your personal experience may be running up against the collective experience or the objective experience. Saturn in Capricorn is a much more objective placement for a planet than Mars in Cancer. So we may feel some emotional pain when we run into the objective reality of the situation. And the best way to handle that is to recognize that the conflict may not always be about you. This is really about kind of learning to have empathy and to see things from a perspective that is not always about your own inner, very small bubble of experience. And that's where part of the conflict may come in this week. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. This is one of the hardest things to implement. A lot of the conflicts that we experience out in life are because we don't completely understand where someone else is coming from. This is another danger of this week. We may get upset because we don't actually understand what someone else's intentions were. We haven't asked to clarify, that we haven't been able to be direct about asking for what we want, or getting a little bit of a glimpse into the other person's perspective. And one of the things you can do this week that is healthy is to ask questions. Rather than creating an entire scene in your mind about what that other person's intentions or perspectives or goals might be, why not ask? If there's something that comes up where there is something that pings your heart a little bit and pings the little voice inside of you that wants to lash out, maybe your first instinct could be to ask questions rather than to feed that part of yourself. So always helpful to get clarification and to try to do it in the most mature fashion. It's not like you don't ask rhetorical questions. you genuinely ask from your heart and try to get clarity. And that can be difficult under these aspects right now, because like I said, the Mars in Cancer is like the pregnant silence. It's all the things that we've left unsaid. And the way to kind of clear that up is to have the courage to ask a question and then be ready to hear the answer. And then go back to number 2 and don't take it personally, and remember that it might not always be about you. Number 4, always do your best. It says your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. We may not be at our best this week. There may be an area of your life where you are feeling an extra sensitivity, and it may be difficult for you to rise above the challenge and to take a deep breath and to reach into that deep inner knowing and connect to your higher eternal self. And on some level, that's okay. And you're going to have to try your best this week, and your best might be a little bit different from day to day, week to week, month to month. So if you're feeling vulnerable, it may be the best action this week may be to take a break. to nurture yourself, to engage in some of the healthy habits and coping mechanisms. And I would stress healthy, that will allow you to deal with things better. What are some healthy coping mechanisms? Getting enough sleep, eating foods that are generative rather than degenerative. And that may mean something a little bit different for everyone depending on your diet. But what foods make you feel energized versus make you feel tired and sick? What kind of self-care do you practice? What kind do you journal in the morning? Do you meditate? Do you connect with nature? Do you have a support system that you can talk to that you feel have unconditional love for you? This isn't the time to talk to your most drama-inducing friend. This is the time to reach out to your most practical, unconditionally loving friend if you need that, and to someone that you know is going to accept you, flaws and all. And those are the people that are your rocks right now. And just keep in mind that they may be going through their own little mini crisis too, and that's okay. So practice good self-care. Try to speak with integrity. Don't take things personally. Ask questions if you have a conflict that comes up, and then just do your best, and your best is going to change. And I think if you can keep those things in mind this week, you're going to be able to navigate the opposition with grace, and with maturity. And you may find that you come out of it more intact than you might have otherwise if you had made a different decision in the moment and a different choice. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. And I hope this was helpful, and good luck navigating these waters. And just remember to breathe. Remember to take a deep breath, and this too shall pass. So take care, everyone. Talk soon. Bye-bye.